The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Hello everyone, welcome to Leadership Podcast. It is yet again another edition of The Big Issue. And of course, as usual, I'm your regular host. George Agba is my name. And with me here in the studio are our in-house analysts. We have Silas Ezegu and Chibuzo Okaibi.
Thank you very much.
And of course, the big issue of the day is Nigeria's ranking in the corruption index of Transparency International. Nigeria dropped 5 places in the 2021 Corruption Perceptions Index released by Transparency International on Tuesday. The index released by Transparency International scored Nigeria 24 out of 100 points in the 2021 index and pegged Nigeria as the second most corrupt country in West Africa after Guinea. And of course, the development is coming against the backdrop of the avowed fight against corruption by the President Muhammadu Buhari administration. Is it not worrisome, Silas, that the 2021 Corruption Perception Index released by TI is showing that corruption is on the increase in Nigeria?
Well, for my part, I would say I'm not surprised, and then I don't know how many Nigerians were surprised that Nigeria has dived again in the corruption perception interest. If you go to the streets of Nigeria and ask people really whether they're going to fight corruption, I don't know how many Nigerians will tell that they actually believe that they're going to fight corruption, because the publicly exposed persons who are accused or found to have engaged in public theft. Now, some of them are Catholic governments and they are working free. And when the ruling party is telling you that they have not debunked it yet, the former chairman of APC that brought to the government said if you are a public thief and you come over to our own side, you're forgiven, baptized, whatever. You no longer be found out. And the sales of Christians moving to that party. So that has given the impression that the government is not matching word with action when it comes to fighting corruption. It's unfortunate because when the government declared this anti-corruption like this, one of the reasons why Nigerians voted for it and security. Also doing the economy as part of the economy of Nigeria. Especially insecurity and corruption were posing the biggest set of Nigerians to the government. And the corruption was like I don't make much gain on the insecurity issue. Even this one too. Last year we dropped one place. Today we are dropping. The other year, 2020, we dropped 1 year, 1 month.
Consecutively like that.
These are 5. So that means the issue is getting deeper and deeper. It's not good for Nigeria.
Yes, the latest corruption ranking of Nigeria should be a thing of concern to President Muhammadu Buhari. You understand? And why it's so is because President Muhammadu Buhari came to power to fight corruption, because that is the major prime of his agenda. Yet, from this report, Nigeria is the second most corrupt country in West Africa. So, what is your take on this?
Well, first, I think the challenge of corruption and the perception of corruption has been one that has been with Nigeria for a long time. Nigeria has always had that problem. It's almost like a historic problem. Right, even before this current democratic dispensation. If you read most of the reasons for which military governments were overthrown, there's always this speck of corruption in there somewhere. The reason for the first coup, of which we do condemn, there's no coup that is acceptable anywhere. But there's always this streak of corruption that runs through.
10%. You know, going about 10% at the time.
Exactly.
Now that's like,
Exactly.
oh, now that kind of
Amazing.
compared to be like saintly.
Yes. So, you know, they had the history of corruption and it has been there for a long time. And so when President Barry in 20, and that is what makes his own case quite peculiar. You know, other from my recollection, I'm not sure most of previous administrations focused so much
Plank of their own.
yeah, so their campaign, you know, to vote against corruption. Maybe in a way you might say, okay, because it's one party, same party, and the transition from one party to, you know, so perhaps while Buhari came, coming as somebody from the opposition, assuming office, it was always going to be one thing I was going to look into. But even before then, he has always carried this. There was always this stature about him, about being a man of integrity and a man who does not condone, you know, corrupt activities. And so that is where it's really shocking that in his administration, instead of us to be making leaps, we seem to be declining in that perception index. Of course, you can expect that the government is not going to accept it. You know, I think already they have already. I think the government spokesman today on another channel, you know, knocked it and all of that. But it's expected. You know, it's always a cherry picking thing. You pick the one that favors you and don't
The one that does not concern you. Yes,
it's really worrisome that
the reports showed
exists.
the reports showed that the country is now more corrupt than when this very government came into power. And it's a situation where the country will score only 24% out of 100%, 100 points.
That's a double X.
Actually,
You know, when I had a lecturer, you know, in the past, you know, he would tell him that if you scored, you know, 39%, it's not the same thing as one who scored 20%. So he will give you F if you scored 35 and give you FF if you scored 20. So we know where you feel.
Of course.
So this 24%, it's like FF.
I'm telling you, because this is despite the game, the thing is even worrisome that you can imagine the gains that the government is throwing around as this achievement in the anti-corruption work.
Yes.
You understand? At the end of the day, that's most Nigerians are worried. They say, is it that this ITI, the Transparency International report is flawed or what?
But I don't think that they have any reason to target this government. It's something they do across all the nations. They use the same parameters. They have key indicators, performance indicators, on which they measure these issues, and they apply it across the countries in unison, across board. So it's not target. They don't make the
targeting. They
don't apply it across all the countries.
Because if it is so, then we will not ask what the Guinea did to them. That Guinea is number one, the most corrupt in the West Africa.
So the time they made it, they came out and Nigeria had advanced a lot. And then Nigeria accepted that one. Okay, we're making gain. So if they begin to, that's what I said, if they begin to knock out this one, so what of the other one that they show that you are making progress, you have moved from this point, show that the promises you have back on are actually working out. So, I don't think that they're targeting the government to fail. I think they're just applying their performance indicators across board and then measuring it the way they know how to measure it. But the actual said it will work in the government because it's a government that came with an aura of, a mantra for anti-corruption. And the Nigerians actually bought into it because corruption has become, a major impediment to Nigeria's growth and development of the country. Bad insecurity now, but that's a lot. But security is even implicated in insecurity. If not for the corruption that is in the system of fighting this insecurity, by now we are out of the news. So corruption, every institution, everything that's not working in Nigeria, in every facet, just look at it, there's still there. That's every season. Anywhere things are not working, the only thing making not work in Nigeria is slaves. But Nigeria's intelligent. Nigeria's are hardworking. If they're not doing what they should do, it's because some parts are being increased to the detriment of the rest of the other people.
Well, before we continue, let's just quickly take a short break. And as we do so, we hope that our viewers will begin to send in their comments to help shape the conversation on the big issue. Don't go offline. We'll be back in a moment.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Well, welcome back. We are still on the big issue in Leadership Podcast. And of course, the big issue of the day is the worrisome perception index by Transparency International that pegged Nigeria as the second most corrupt country in West Africa. And of course, it is coming under a government that has the anti-corruption war as its major prime. So if you see now, there has been this argument among Nigerians silently that is suffering everywhere. The largest they used to see when it was a PDP, under the PDP administration, at least they always say something will drop from the top for the boys. And the common man should get the crumbs from the table. But the APC administration, the argument is that nothing drops at all. And the idea is that they say no, it has zero tolerance for corruption. So they are corrupt. They don't even release money. Even a politician will tell you he doesn't give money because this government does not tolerate that. Yes. The perception index of Nigeria is that corruption is on the index. What do you think are the centers of corruption in the country? You know, in the past, identified centers used to be places like the state government houses, presidency, the National Assembly. The National Assembly will not get much of Ghana must go. It's a dispensation. I don't know whether the Ghana must go. Whether the Ghana must go change to Ecola's bag.
In those days, sorry, no problem. In those days, Nigeria was a cash. Now we are no longer cash. We are now
cashless society.
So you don't need a Ghana must go. You just to click alert.
And nowadays we use more foreign currencies. You saw one governor do some time back.
Yes.
Alert. You just get alert. Probably confirm. You don't need to carry Ghana must again. You have evolved.
Advanced.
So you see, has the idea here, as I was asking, has anything changed, since 2015 when this administration came on board? Has anything changed from what used to hold in the PDP era or in the last administration?
Well, if what this report shows is anything to go by, I think it explains a lot. That it gives a lot of reasons for one to think nothing significant has changed. Of course, those who kick against this will try to play up the picture of an organization that is out to embarrass them. So you also have to put that in perspective. When I go and say, "Oh, this is a political error," and so these are things that might be done by people to paint them in black light. But I even want to look much more, because what this raises now is a question of how we perceive perception in Nigeria and the approach towards tackling perception in Nigeria. No, tackling corruption itself, not just the perception of it, tackling corruption itself and not just the perception of it. Because what this report is looking at is the perception. But if you look at the substance of how we address corruption in Nigeria, you almost want to believe that this report isn't far from the truth. Because we are still at the point where we deal with corruption reactively rather. We are not being proactive about it. What do I mean? We have a system where people steal. People have the structures to ensure that people will not steal are not as strong as we should have. The whole thing about Procurement Act is still being there. Is still there. We still do not have a board, because I think that is at the heart of where most of these things happen. Procurement, how they buying and selling, and how this thing. If you still don't have that, I'm not sure they have considered that, but if you still don't have that, and if it has been done and it took you that long to do that, because there was a time there was a lot of hue and cry about that, it shows you why such perception will remain. That is one. Then two, when you, like Mr. Silas did point out, when you now see people who have corrupt cases moving to a political party where they think they will get coverage, it also enhances this perception about, okay, let's move this way so that we get protected. And when you now have a national chairman infer such that if you move over to this place, you become, whether he means it or whether he doesn't mean it, but if it was said, and it is on record that such a comment was made, and the only interpretation many people can give to that is that whatever thing you've done in the past, when you come into this place, you are completely protected. Your sins are forgiven. It gives life. Your sins are forgiven. To that perception. But
they even go and sin, go and sin and come.
Just come. Just come.
Do what they're saying. It gives life. The guarantee is that once you're an APC, your sins are forgiven.
Exactly. It gives life to that perception. The whole idea of the single treasury TSA was to ensure that things like this, a clear channel for how transactions are done. But even at that, you still hear stories of how money is
heard much about that TSA.
Exactly. How well
even the whistleblower.
The whistleblower policy, how well.
I think it's even now they're making it to an act.
You understand? So it's mind-boggling. So you might necessarily not be too critical of this report. Because if you put these things side by side, what this report has said, with regards to the perception of it now,
even the one aspect you've not even mentioned, which we are coming to, is the fact that it's taking an incredibly long time for the big fish to be consigned to prison. The political actors, former governors who are accused of stealing billions. Their cases have been legal
for a long time. Let me even
only small fire being sent to jail.
Let me even chip one, which contributes seriously. A particular case, a minister, current minister now, who was former governor, whose properties were confiscated.
Yes, I remember.
And immediately, this government came into power. First, all the properties that were confiscated were returned. And the same person serves the government.
Given a juicy ministry
to So how won't this, if the case had run through its course, that would have been a different matter. But you saw a case where it just overnight they said, okay, go ahead, return all that, and so even if he's proven to not have done those things, you know how these things work. What did you do to acquire this number of properties you have within that time frame? These are questions that will boggle the minds of the average that are still Zimbabwe they use now.
Yes.
That will still boggle the minds of
Yes.
Nigerians. So these are things that will contribute to the perception crisis.
Look at
that
it
they have
recently.
with regards to
We
corruption.
had 2 civil servants owning houses running into hundreds
of houses.
by the
300 something houses.
Yes, by the
In
salary level of civil servants now. One civil servant will not even to afford a proper house now. You see some people having 200, 300 civil servants under this regime. They have been found out. But a lot of votes are still hiding the system. Have you forgotten even the added budget? How many thousands of fraudulent, budget lines added to the budget?
As recent as
Yes.
last week or 2
I was
weeks
talking
ago.
about project over the years, and nothing has been done to make sure that we don't. And it is from this way that the corruption flows.
Of course.
And then they put all the project there, they siphon the money, and tomorrow they put it again and siphon the money. And see, some of the provisions in the budget will fuel this perception. For example, we had almost like 2 billion to just for the kitchen of the Asovilla. Are they going to eat? One head.
Is it the clinic that the first lady herself even had to cry?
Raise the alarm that
to repay, not buy medical appliances. He ran into how many billions?
And you see the
To repay. What are they repairing?
and
They run the billions for 1 year.
Silas, you see the
And by the time media people got tired of writing about them. So these are things fueling, and during lockdown, during the COVID-19, one of the reports, one of the indicators in the index is the way they treated COVID-19 money. It is during COVID-19 money that children who didn't go to school, who are at home, were being fed. School children were being fed with hundreds of billions of naira.
But those children were not in school.
They are not in school, and the parents didn't see the food. So who are fed? So and then these things get reported, and when people hear about it, they say no, nothing has changed. So these are things that are piling up on the corruption index, and that's why we're not going to come down from it for now.
Silas, why I ask about the idea of whether the Transparency International report, its corruption perception index is flawed. See what IPC has come up with today. ICPC faulted the Transparency International rating. You see, addressing journalists at in Abuja. The media consultant to the ICPC chairman, Oluyinka Akintunde, gave a presentation on Nigeria's anti-corruption coalition assessment and said it was based on outdated data sources. According to him, only 5 of the 13 data sources used by Transparency International were current, while 8 others were based on 2017, 2018, and 2019, which were also used in previous years without taking cognizance of the actions or new development in the country. That is what ICPC has to say about this. And besides, you see, you mentioned that a presidential aide was on television, kicking against it. If not, I would have said that since that yesterday till now, the presidency has kept more on this report. And most Nigerians feel that if this report had been positive, a positive one, they would have reacted immediately. So is it that government will want to hear the verdict, doesn't want to hear the verdict of the people because what they are saying does not? Why is it that in Nigeria, anytime something like this comes up, just like Silas mentioned, and we say that if Guinea is the most corrupt in West Africa, we are the second. We can't claim that Transparency International has a personal beef with this government. In that case, other countries around are countries that they would have had issues with. What do you think about the ICPC's claim that from outdated data sources that TI relied on to make this particular rating?
Well, I don't know what I wouldn't know what ICPC is looking at. Because they have in front of them. But Transparency International is a very well-respected institution, and I do not expect that such a reputable institution will not do its own work well, knowing that it is dealing with governments that will punch up holes in there. Remember that LCBC is a government agency fighting corruption. So you expect that if a corruption report that this does not favor the country, they will be seen acknowledging that what
Yeah,
they are.
Exactly.
So it is normal that they will come out to this way to defend their source of living. That's a given. Okay. So I do not expect. I also want to the transparency to respond to this claim that they use outdated data.
So
But I do not expect such an organization to make that kind of a mistake, because once it is found to have done that, its credibility will be shot to pieces. I don't think they want to raise that kind of thing.
Well, thank you, Silas. You see, the whole thing borders about the Buhari administration, because that corruption in perception index has made a mess of this government. And that means with 1 year to go, nothing has been done on the fight against corruption. And you see, what can this government do in the next few months that it has to improve the country's corruption ranking? Because let's face it, Silas, being ranked 154 out of 180 countries is embarrassing. This country could do better. What can you say about this to me?
Well, I wouldn't want to hurriedly say they've not done anything. There have been some convictions. Some people are serving jail time for corrupt actions. There's the former governor,
The
former governors,
the Jolly governor.
and then you have prosecutions going on. You have people convicted under this administration.
There was one that was convicted and was in Kuje prison, and Supreme Court had to.
Exactly. So you would not want to just overlook that. These are things that this administration has done. Well, as for, I wouldn't want to repeat what General Chief Olusegun Obasanjo just said, that if you're expecting more, anything new from this president,
You're wasting your time.
it might be, of course, he was referring to the state of the nation, and made particularly more with regards to security. But again, within the time frame that there is to work, you can almost think that there will be perhaps little to do, because we are approaching an election season. In fact, we are in an election season. It's an election year. The bulk of what will be done this year will be election campaigning, electioneering, and all of that. So you have, I am almost inclined to think you have little governance and more of politics. So you could either swing whatever, you can swing both ways now. You can have a government who perhaps would want to sustain whatever good perception they want to have from Nigerians by pursuing it within this time frame to use as a campaign tool, or a government that might want to be perhaps in trying to galvanize political support across party lines, relax a bit more and woo people in. So it depends on how the government, plays it, and how the political temperature, goes, because that is what's going to really determine the action of government within this period of time.
I agree with you, because you can even imagine when this issue of a subsidy removal came, you see, the government was very passionate about that. And at the end of the day,
yes, that's another major
when the major one came, NLC, the organized labor, not threatening they were going on strike, and the rest. The government saw everything before they just package everything. And according to leadership newspaper, what Buhari did was to set a booby trap for the next president by packaging everything and throw it to the next administration, shifting the whole thing by 18 months, and that means the Petroleum Industrial Act will not even start being in effect because of that fuel subsidy. And most Nigerians say it is because of the 2023 election. Well, we have a comment here. Some of our viewers are beginning to send in their comment, and we have Mohammed Salusi Suleiman. He said, gradually we will be free of corruption by God's grace. He is relying on God.
With God, that is possible.
Yes, of course.
God has done his bit. I keep saying, God has done his bit. God has done his own bit. It's left for us to do.
In other words, what he's even trying to say is that the time shall come when the true worship must worship God, the Spirit, and the truth. Well, that is the much we can take in today's edition of The Big Issue. Thank you for keeping tab with us out there, and of course, I'll thank in-house analysts for addressing the big issue the way it is. Join us same time tomorrow for another edition of this program. Do have a wonderful day.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.